Well, to discuss this, let's go to our panel. In Paris, Keumayou is president of the African Information Club, and Dougoukolo Ba-Konare is president of the Kisal Observatory, a human rights group focusing on the Sahel region. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you on the Newsmakers. Dougoukolo Ba-Konare, let me start with you. Is a new prime minister the solution for Mali's problems?
I'm not sure there's a definite solution to the problem at hand because we have tried so many different combinations of prime ministers and governments. It seems to me that the general context of Mali battling the jihadists and also having to face difficult intercommunal relations is something that really requires political will. This new prime minister was a member of the government that just finished their duty last week. And I'm really wondering about the commitment and the political will to pursue any major shift in policy.
Right. So, Louis, the fact that Boubou Cisse was a part of the government, the former finance minister, does it suggest that it will be more of the same and this might just be a cosmetic change, Louis?
No, I think it's a change. The people were looking for a change. The fact is, when you consider the position in France, for example, Emmanuel Macron was part of the government of François Hollande before becoming candidate and now president of France. It has been a change, maybe not the change people were looking for, but it's the first step to the change people are looking for, and the partners too. So I think what is deeply concerned here is not only the fact we have the right man at the right place, is the right answer to the right problem. And I don't think just changing the prime minister will bring a huge solution to the huge problems Mali is facing now. Because it's not only a problem with the opposition, it's not only a problem with the partners who are looking for the application of the agreements signed in Alger. It's also a problem with the majority, with the party of the president, who has been also willing a change of prime minister. So we have lots of problems, but few solutions only now.
Okay, Dougoukolo, did it take for something as grotesque as the Ogosagu massacre for the Malian leadership to finally realize that there's a big problem? Because things were bubbling on and off, up and down for about 8 years. Did it take something so horrendous for them to finally have some self-awareness that they needed to do something?
Well, contrarily to what most of the media is saying, I don't agree with the statement that Ogosagu and the massacre is what prompted the president to want to change prime minister and what prompted the prime minister to resign. I think that this is one event in a series of very unfortunate events. There are also problems within the army, and it's been bubbling up for months. And even the situation of human rights, this is something that an organization like mine, like Kisal, has been trying to advocate for years. But there was no one to listen. Even when they were listening, in reality, they weren't able to enact any major change on the field. Now, my major concern is that this is going to be some sort of public relations operations and saying, well, we're cleaning up the face and we're trying to sail toward a new direction. And I'm not sure that there is a definite plan yet.
Dougoukolo, was it a failure of the former prime minister, or is he just being scapegoated and they're pinning the blame on him and his cabinet so that they don't have to deal with accountability for bad decisions and the inability to keep Malians secure?
And there's a lot to say about the prime minister. Probably many positive things that he did, and also, unfortunately, lots of misdeeds. And to check the balance now will be pretty short-sighted, because we need to take a step back and look at the context in general.
Right.
I'm not sure that changing the prime minister now was due to the fact that the prime minister who just left was lacking in competence and skills. I think that there was some pressure from the civil society, from religious leaders, and facing that sort of crisis, the prime minister or the president decided that it was better to sort of pacify the society at large, and this is the reason why he left.
Right,
so
and
pressure.
Right, and Louis, given the fact that Cisse is an ethnic Fulani, how important is that? Help me understand that.
certain people will feel themselves represented by him as prime minister. But I think it is not the only issue here, because the big issue is to recognize that Mali is a country who is not a normal country. They are facing big difficulties now because of jihadism, because of economic crisis, because of political crisis, and bringing only one solution, the political solution, is not the answer to the huge problems the country is facing now. So I think it's probably a good position as political answer, but it is nothing concerning the entire problem Mali is facing now. And I don't know, maybe they will find a solution to bring answers to the social issues people are looking for answers to, and also to satisfy the partners, France, first of all, the countries who are in the G5 Sahel, and all the partners who are helping Mali to face its difficult problems, the lot of problems it's facing now. So I'm a little I'm in a little bit disappointed with the fact that there is only a political answer to a problem which is very huge now, and who needs the help of all the political elite of the country, and bringing only an ethnic solution to a problem they consider as ethnic is not a national answer to the problem.
Dougoukolo, are they looking at it purely through an ethnic lens, and they should be looking at it through a broader lens, maybe?
Please.
Well, I want to go back to the notion that the prime minister was chosen because of his ethnicity. I don't believe that this was an element that factored into the decision of the president to pick him as prime minister. I think that he just happens to be an ethnic Fulani, and probably there are going to be some benefits reaped from that fact. And the current ethnic strife that is prevailing in Mali isn't really something that will last long in the future if the necessary measures are decided now. The problem is that people have been antagonistic for a couple of years because of the presence of jihadists, because of past grievances. And when you don't have any state presence, you don't have security, you don't have justice, of course it's going to boil, and then it's going to overcome any efforts if they're not definitive. About the G5 Sahel force, we have been talking about it for years now, and it's not operational. So it's not capable to stand between fighting parties to do interposition or to chase terrorists either. And I believe that combining the help from the international community and their ability to really sustain a war on the long term will bring some sort of social security in Mali that should allow Malian leaders to feel at ease when deciding policy to better rule the country. But they seem to be back against the wall now. That's the only explanation that I have, because there have been so many prime ministers and the government has tried to shift, but the basis didn't really change. So I'm wondering, is this some sort of admission of failure and inability to find creative solutions?
Right. Louis, the enemy doesn't quite have an exact geography. They don't have an address. And so besides when we see Ouagadougou, we see soldiers being killed, 11 recently, a UN peacekeeper was killed. So with all of that in mind, people getting blown up by landmines and stuff, and you don't know which group's doing it and where exactly they live and where they come from. How does changing the cabinet solve any of that?
I don't think the change of the cabinet will help. I don't think also the military solution will be the ending solution, will be the high point in resolving the issue. The problem is, since the economic crisis started in Mali, since the political issue also had different changes, we had a generation of leaders in which the people were believing. They've been from Alpha Omar Konare to Amadou Toumani Touré, and now Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. People were hoping to have a change with them, and there is no change. The situation is becoming worse. So I don't think the only solution will be to change leaders or to bring military solution. Those two solutions don't work. alone. And even if we combine them, I'm not sure it will work. So we need to work with political leaders who are working hand on hand to find definitive solutions to the problems, not having political leaders who are dividing on all the issues in which we're seeking global solution, global answers coming from the leaders on the political scene. So I don't know. I have a doubt concerning the fact that changing the prime minister will bring the solution.
Dougoukolo Ba-Konare, President Boubacar Keïta, does he know what he's doing?
Well, again, I want to go back to the question you just asked and one thing that was said. From where I stand, as someone from a human rights organization, I think the matter that really, the element that was lacking with the government is that they didn't rely enough on the civil society. Several times I have spoken with officials. I have met officials from different levels, sometimes really high in the hierarchy. And I have always told them that we have a way to do early warning and to be able to work with the military and say where danger is happening. And this is something that could be really useful if they were able to seize the opportunity. But if it's just a top-down approach to the problem solving, this is going to really take a long time. And about the president, I think there was a time when it was difficult to allege that the president knew for sure what was happening in the country. That cannot be said anymore. The president has traveled to Ogosagu. He has met leaders of opinion. He has met foreign officials, so he knows what is happening. The problem is not a question of ignorance now. Mm-hmm. The question is really a question of whether the president is willing and able to enact a major change and shift in the way that several actors of Mali work together within the government and between the government and other institutions and the civil society.
Yeah, Dougoukolo, how partial are you to the argument that some make that Mali is a victim of its geography, that after the Libyan revolution started, all these weapons, of course, flooded across the border, these jihadist groups, as you say, crossed the border, started causing havoc. It's not only a problem that Mali has, Burkina Faso has it as well. And unfortunately, a terrible sequence of events started, and it's very difficult for the central government to keep this country together and keep everybody safe because it was a problem that was out of their hands. Are you partial to that argument?
It's very complex. Certainly, we can blame the fall of Gaddafi for every single thing that's happened. Even before that, in the early 2000s, jihadist groups were present in the north of Mali, and the government wasn't able to really repel them. And then there was an agreement in Algiers in 2006 between the Malian government and some Tuareg rebels, in which they had to concede military patrols in some areas of the north. So the state, in terms of governance, was already taking a step back. The geography of Mali is not extraordinary. I mean, the country existed for several decades now, and at times that wasn't a factor that hurt Mali. We have to take a broader look into African integration, into the way that our supranational organizations work. The ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African Countries, should have been able to have mechanisms of prevention and defense. Nowadays, countries don't fight between themselves. They have to fight asymmetrical wars. So it doesn't make sense that they will all collaborate to strengthen their borders. It's certainly not a problem of Mali itself alone. And you can see that Burkina Faso and Niger are impacted as well. That's one of the reasons why G5 Sahel was proposed as a solution. But again, the solution isn't going to be satisfactory as long as it's not something that integrates other countries of the area and there's not a decisive plan decided together.
Louis, has ECOWAS failed Mali so far?
No, and first of all, to recall your question, the fact is Mali is not a neighbor of Libya. Mali is neighboring Algeria. So they don't have a common border with Libya. But the fact that Libya was in that situation has helped those rebels, those jihadists, to have some weapons they didn't have before. They have received more weapons than they had before, and that is why it changed the game. And yes, Mali cannot alone face all those problems. And the fact is that ECOWAS has not failed, but ECOWAS does not have the means to fight those enemies who are really richer than ECOWAS, than all the countries of ECOWAS united. So it is a matter of means now, and I think the partners will help in ECOWAS. The partners coming from abroad also will help, but that will never be enough if we don't have an administration that will be helping populations close to their location. And now, concerning the north of Mali, the state has failed. There is no administrator. There is no public administration close to the population. So everything is going wrong, and that's why it is very impossible, from my point of view, to end this war and to end this situation at the north of Mali.
Okay. Gentlemen, I thank you both for joining us from Paris, Louis Keumayou and Dougoukolo Ba-Konare. Looking forward to having you back on the show soon.